I got something kind of important to go over on this episode of I don't know, man. I don't know. Just a little weird today. Mercury's in retrograde. But anyway, I don't know, is it? For all the people that are into astrology or astronomy, let me know. Is Mercury in retrograde? I never know. I just know when it's a full moon, I'm a little bit loony, and it's not a full moon, so something's going on. Anyway, are the days getting shorter or are they getting longer? You tell me. Do you live in the West Hemisphere or the North, the South? What do? Hey, screw it, huh? I'm going to show you how to break it down. But all jokes aside, I want to talk about something very important. People have such a limited vocabulary in 2025. They don't understand words. Now, who knows what the school system is teaching? Nobody. Because it doesn't teach you how to make a living, does it? Anyway, let's keep it positive, huh? Let's not get down that path. We won't do that. We won't do that today. Let's think about it like this. We have access to so many different colors in the spectrum, yet we're choosing to paint with only 2 or 3 different colors. That's what having a limited vocabulary is like. It's like having access to drive a Rolls Royce, a mental Ferrari, Rolls Royce, Lexus, whatever you want, but you're choosing to push a golf cart. I mean, it doesn't make sense. Because when you look at the language that authors used to use a couple hundred years ago, they were using 30, 40, 50, 60,000 different words in their manuscripts. Authors don't do that today. They gotta keep it dumbed down for people to get their point across, because the attention spans cannot handle too much difficult language. So why is this? Why are we kind of devolving when it comes to language and vocabulary? I was reading some I won't say very difficult books, but I was reading some books that were written 100 to 200 years ago. Like Blavatsky and a couple of other books that I want to mention here. But I want to mention, I got a list of these books, and I'm going to mention some of these books. But I think the important thing is that we're not really challenging our brains. Like, you think about the average person and what they do on a daily basis. They don't really challenge their brain by reading difficult information. They passively look at information. They read memes or captions on Instagram and TikTok. They watch videos passively. They watch television passively. Everything they do is just passive. You know, how many people do research on what it is that they want to do? You know, if you want to write, let's say, a Kindle ebook, but you just keep scrolling on Instagram, Facebook, and all these other platforms, or playing video games, that idea of writing the Kindle book just fades away for years and years down the road. It never happens. It never happens. So it's all about really being intentional. And when I mention some of these books, you got to read the book with a dictionary in your hand. It's going to be challenging. It's going to be a little bit more, it's going to take a lot longer to read the book. But that's the reward. The reward is the challenge. Reading the older literature expands your awareness, because the way they break things down and the way they use different words, they meticulously break a subject down. Just look at a book like Self-Reliance by Ralph Waldo Emerson. The whole book is about the same topic: being more self-reliant, trusting in yourself, having an individual mindset. The author breaks it down in such a way that it could be explained to many different fractals and many different walks of life, many different people at different stages. Now, I would say, if you're going to read something that's a little bit more difficult, read Ralph Waldo Emerson, Self-Reliance. Start with that one. But it's a different kind of self-development. It's a different kind of self-development. To dip into the old literature and expand your mind. It's about quality over quantity. You know, a lot of times, especially when you're trying to read all these self-development books, it's as if you're doing it as a vanity metric. It's like, oh, I read that one, I read this one, I read that one. Look at all the pile of books I read, all this knowledge. But most of it just goes in one ear and out the other. Or in one eye and out the other eye. You're like skimming through the pages, not even really resonating with this information. Have a deeper domain expertise in a certain topic. The way these authors used to write back in the day, I'm talking 100 to 200 years ago, specifically, that time frame. They laid things out in such a meticulous way. It was so well thought out. The language and the vocabulary is extensive, it's deep. It resonates when you understand it. Like, when you read these books, you're going to come across words that you don't understand. You're going to be constantly looking up these words. Boom, one after another. Okay, what's the definition? And it's not like you have to use these words in your everyday language and trip people up or sound cool at a coffee shop. That's not the point. The point is being able to understand. It's like understanding another language, because most people don't even know what these words mean. Like, read something by Rudolf Steiner and just let that marinate in your brain. I'm going to tell you a personal thing with me. I was diagnosed dyslexic when I was a young kid. Learning disability. When I was learning to read, when they taught kids to learn how to read, I came in dead last. I just wasn't catching on. And I used to write my numbers and letters backwards. Some of them, like the B's and the D's, I would get confused, and like I was dyslexic, straight up. Kids point their finger, laugh at me. Hey, he's dyslexic, you know? So I read a lot slower in school. And I hated to read out loud because I knew I was going to get made fun of, smacked in the back of the head and kicked down the stairs in school. But you know what? There came a time where I had a teacher that was like, all right, we're going to read these plays. And we're going to play a character. And this is when I actually started to learn how to like to read, because we're all playing a different character. And it was a small class with people who had trouble in school, you know, whether they had behavioral problems or they just had learning disabilities like me. But we're all playing a character and actually laughing and having fun while reading. So that was the first time that I said, okay, reading is actually pretty cool. The way they were doing it in the other class seemed like torture. Now it's actually fun. And then having a thirst for knowledge as I was growing and becoming a man, or becoming older, and just having that desire to know more, then I realized that I had to understand a broader vocabulary. Also, hip-hop music made me want to learn a larger vocabulary so that I can have more skills on the microphone. But it's mental endurance, it's mental exercise. That's all it is. It's mental exercise. You just take a few minutes out of every day to read an older book and understand it. Like, take a page or two and understand, deeply understand that literature, just that little section. You know, the next day you do another one. And the reason why I'm saying this, and the reason why I think this is a really good idea, is because there's a huge cost to staying the same and to staying stagnated and not being able to articulate, not being able to understand certain things, not being able to expand your mind. Because when we keep the same thing going day after day, just entertainment day after day, or edutainment with the same thing, like sometimes we watch the same thing on YouTube as if we didn't see it already. We're looking at the same kind of content over and over and over again. Yeah, we already know that. It's annoying. You're hearing it over and over again. So staying the same, there's a huge cost to that you don't see. You actually, when time goes by and you don't strengthen the mind and learn new things, broaden your perspective and expand your awareness, you're drifting backwards. Because time keeps moving. but you're not moving. And the reason why it's so important is because when you have a larger vocabulary, it's like you have a master key, or you have a multitude of different keys where you can open different doors in life. But the person who has only like one or two keys, they're trying to open all these other doors, and they're not going to open anything. They're stuck. And most people are stuck in life. And I really, really believe that if we can expand the vocabulary and learn from these authors that I'm going to mention at the end of this video, we can get unstuck. And it only takes a few minutes every single day. Because these authors, what they're going to do ultimately is going to teach you how to break things down for other people in multiple different ways. Again, not using the same terminology or lexicon that they use, but you're going to be able to see how they were thinking. That's the whole thing. I want people to understand that the mindset that it takes to elaborate on something in these ways, it takes a different kind of mindset. To be able to break things down and explain them that thoroughly. I mean, I aspire to actually do that. But just to get into that mind frame of how they even wrote that. What were they thinking? What is their process? It's different from the authors today, I'm telling you. Another thing I want to mention before I give you these books is that when you're speaking too, you want to reduce your filler words. You want to be able to clearly structure your arguments. Not just arguments for the sake of arguing, but arguments to get your point across. To have more of a win-win situation in life when you're describing things to people, or you're trying to allow people to understand what you're trying to express. Have you ever had moments where you were just like, man, I'm trying to articulate this to the person and it just doesn't seem like it's landing. It doesn't seem like they're getting it. That's exactly the whole point here. Okay, so these are the books that I want people to actually, just give it a chance, take a look into it, because I've been reading these books, and I'll tell you right now, not only do they expand your consciousness and your state of mind, they heighten you intellectually. Okay, so the first book is going to be Self-Reliance by Ralph Waldo Emerson. Probably one of the easier ones to start with is any book by Ralph Waldo Emerson. Specifically, I like the book Self-Reliance. And then we have Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. There's huge benefits to understanding the Stoic philosophy, especially when you're going through times of turmoil, when you're going through hard times. That book is perfect. Another book that I was reading on Kindle, Democracy in America by Tocqueville. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing the name right, but very intriguing. Reading this book helps you realize certain patterns that happen throughout history. Very interesting read. And then we have Knowledge of Higher Worlds by Rudolf Steiner. This book right here is Steiner's core philosophy. This kind of book it's a metaphysical type of book, but it's the kind of book that'll blow your mind wide open if you can understand it. This is one of the more difficult reads. Rudolf Steiner is very difficult, early 1900s, but if you just look up the words with the dictionary, I would say read it on Kindle, so you can just tap on the word and the dictionary definition comes right up. Okay? Now, we also have Flatland, Edwin Abbott's very intriguing book. It reminds me of Plato's Allegory of the Cave, but a little bit more nuanced, I would say. If you haven't read it, I don't want to spoil any of it, but it's a very thought-provoking book, a consciousness expanding book. And then you have Carl Jung, Man and His Symbols. Carl Jung, the psychologist, deep thinker. Carl Jung has a number of different books, very beneficial. So these are the books that I'm reading right now, and that's why I wanted to share this. I just wanted to share what I'm currently reading. I haven't even finished all these books, but I'm currently slowly reading these books. That's it. And it's something that I want to share, and I think it's a good idea for people to read and understand this kind of literature. So, to wrap up, I just want to say, don't listen to it on audiobook. I mean, you could listen to these books on audiobook, but I don't think it's going to be as beneficial as studying the literature. Because when you're listening on audiobook, your mind tends to drift and you'll tune it out. If it's too difficult for your brain's just going to tune it out. You're going to start thinking of other things and you're not going to be focused on the information. So definitely dissect the text. You want to dissect this methodically. It's called methodical reading, okay? So just do that. Let me know how it works out. Because if we don't take some of these things serious and take steps in the right direction, we're limiting ourselves. We don't want to look into the lost barrel of time and say, where did it go? You only get old when you stop learning. You only get old when you stop moving. You atrophy. And just like your body can atrophy if you don't move and exercise, your mind and your brain will also atrophy if you don't challenge it. If you don't exercise the mind, it gets old. It slows down. So let's do this. Let's strengthen our minds. Leave a comment in the comment section for any other books that you think will be beneficial. There's tons of them. Share some of that wisdom and insight. We'll talk to you on the next one.